Have you seen articles popping up like this in the last few days? Have you seen conversation or heard conversations being had to this effect? Happens every single time. Rugby World Cup finishes, and like clockwork, people start saying, particularly in countries where the World Cups weren't going so well, they say, get rid of all the old guys and get the kids in. And on this video, I'm going to demonstrate, hopefully, or at least try and make an argument that that is flawed thinking and that is not what the best teams do. I would love to know what you think on this topic, of course. So please, as always, get stuck in the comments. I'm Tim. This is Egg Chasers. Giving the video a thumbs up, that really helps spread the word. It is just me talking about rugby. And just because the World Cup is finished doesn't mean there's not lots of rugby stuff to talk about. It's 365 as far as I'm concerned. So I would love it as well if you would subscribe to the channel and not make sure you don't miss anything. But yeah, like I say, these conversations happen all the time, every single time a World Cup finishes. And I get it. I do get it. It's an interesting conversation to have. How might the team look in 4 years' time? Which young guns, which superstars could we unearth? But, as I say, I think all the talk of new directions, fresh starts, youngsters, I don't think it's a smart approach. And on the last video in the channel, I talked about who are the GOATs, who's the greatest team of all time, and the big contenders, the two double World Cup winning sides, New Zealand 2015 and South Africa 2023. In the case of New Zealand 2015, I had a look back, and the average age of that team, which won in 2015, was 29 years of age. The players had an average of 6.5 years of Test rugby experience between them, on average. It was the most caps any side has ever had in a Rugby World Cup winning team, and many regard them as the greatest. South Africa 2023, who again, I think are a contender as the GOAT. They had the hardest route ever to a World Cup. 987 caps between the men that took to the field in that World Cup final. That's a 42 each on average. And an average age of 31. And it's important to remember, like on the field after 1.5 minutes, Dion Fourie, age 38. And in that same pack, 37-year-old Duane Vermeulen. And they went and won a World Cup. And you look across the World Cup at other characters as well. And you've got Augustin Crevi, 38 years of age for Argentina. And Nicolas Sanchez, 37, was also in the squad. And, of course, Johnny Sexton, just retired from the heavily fancied Ireland team. And what an unbelievable player he still was, even as he was ticking over into his 38th birthday. So rugby's a game of trade-offs. You could say life's a game of trade-offs. South Africa, with their 2023 side, they picked an older pack, significantly older. And I think that's why they went for the 7-1 split, to mitigate the fatigue that there might be in that squad. And that was a risk, but the trade-off they got for that risk, what they got in exchange for the risk, was experience. And when you look back at those 3 one-point wins in the quarterfinal, semi-final and final, you have to think that experience absolutely got them across the line. Having players that had been there and done it and been around the block, that's got to count when it comes to those kind of encounters. And so the trade-off was worth it. So I'm not saying that new blood and trying to refresh things and evolve things isn't important. It absolutely is. And look no further than South Africa over the last 4 years for how they've done that with Keenan Mooney and Marnie Lebok and Grant Williams and Kurt-Lee Arendse, and the way they've evolved the way that South Africa play. And you look at New Zealand and guys like Will Jordan and Mark Talea, and up front, De Groot and Lomax. They're in a really good place for 2027 because there are younger players in their squad who've now got real top experience in World Cups. Despite losing, they can go on and feel very, very confident about the future. And also, I would just look at it like this. Rather than thinking you have to proactively clear out the dead wood, go and prune the bushes, there's natural wastage that happens due to retirement. And then, there'll always be a turnover because of dips in form or injuries and things like that. So my point is, you don't need to force it, which is what, certainly in England, it feels like that's the conversation that's being had at the minute, as wanting to force some of these older players to jog on, collect their retirement, and get these youngsters in. And I think that's the wrong way to think. And I'm just going to use England as a case study to demonstrate my point. Courtney Lawes is retiring. I don't know how we're going to replace that guy. What a legend. He's been playing his best rugby the last couple of years as well. Courtney, reconsider. Don't stop playing for England. Ben Youngs, Joe Marler, you would imagine, Dan Cole, Johnny May, these are others. Now, I like the fact that Danny Care, 36 years young, and he said he's not retiring. He says he'll never retire. I like that attitude. When your country calls on you, it's your duty and it's an honour, and you answer your country's call. I would never, I like Danny Care, I think he's got the right idea. You never retire playing for your country. Now, there are others that won't make the Six Nations squad that are from the World Cup squad because of form or injury, like I say. So there could easily be 10 players that are new in the Six Nations squad in a couple of months. That's plenty. So there's no need to force it. And the average age of the England team that were at the World Cup just gone, that finished third, the average age of that team is 28. Which means the average age of the same players, if they went to Australia in 4 years' time, would be 32. Only marginally older than the team that took to the field in the World Cup final for South Africa. Not that old. And just to demonstrate this point, that is an England team, if you had to pick a team in 4 years' time, but you could only select from people that were in the current World Cup squad, the World Cup just gone. So you had to ignore any other players outside of that. And you could pick a team there, which looks all right to me. Got some older players in the team, certainly, with Carl Sinclair, Owen Farrell, in their mid-30s, Maro Itoje starting to push on a little bit, but the average age of that team would be 29, exactly the same as the New Zealand team that won the World Cup in 2015 and are regarded by many as the GOATs. And I know a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at the sight of Owen Farrell still in an England team in 4 years' time, or the thought of it. I don't get, I've said this many times, I don't get the criticism the guy gets. He is England's all-time record point scorer. He's the best 10 we have. He's absolutely incredible. 3-time Lions tourist, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 4-time Lions tourist with, is it 3 Lions tours he's been on? Might be 2. Anyway, he's going to probably get another Lions tour under his belt in 2025, by which time he will be 34 years of age, and his dad will probably be the coach. Actually, that'll be an interesting dynamic if that happens, and he could be starting for England in 4 years' time, by which time he will be 36. 2 years younger than Johnny Sexton was when he finished playing last month. So that's not to say Owen Farrell will be the 10, or I'm saying I want him to be the 10. It's just two things. I don't get why he's disliked so much by a lot of England fans. I find it bizarre, to be honest. He's an absolute legend, one of the greatest players ever to pull on the Rose, but I can't control that. What I would say is, I'm not saying he will be England's 10, but he could be. If Marcus Smith plays well and makes that shirt his own, fantastic. I'll be delighted as well. George Ford will only be 34 in 4 years' time. That's plenty young enough to still be wearing the England 10 jersey. Or maybe it'll be someone else completely. Great in whatever case that is. The point is, the people that are saying right now, right, Six Nations, in 2 months' time, 3 months' time, we have to pick Marcus Smith as the 10 because now's the time to just get rid of the older players. Hey, if Marcus Smith is the best performing 10, let him have the shirt. But don't pick him because he's 28 and Owen Farrell's 32. That's ridiculous. That's the only point I'm making here. And look back at the history that I've already demonstrated. World Cup winning teams, the greatest teams ever, have plenty of experience in their side. In fact, packed with experience, especially in certain positions, front five, you would say. And I think there's another element at play here, and it's the way that we judge talent. When a player is older, their talent is weighed and measured. You know how good they have been and can be. When a player is younger, we're left to imagine where their talent might take them. And we kind of fantasize a little bit sometimes about how good they might be. In the case of Henry Arundel, I think it's quite a good case to keep the England case study going. He's a 20-year-old. He's got incredible raw talent and has got great potential. What you tend to do is think, oh my goodness, if he's this good at 20, imagine how good he'll be at 28. He'll be the greatest winger in history, or fullback, whichever position he ends up playing. But actually, the smart thing to do, and I think what international coaches do with young players, is they judge them based on what they see right now. As fans and as press, we tend to get a bit carried away and think about what they might be in the future rather than assessing what they are now, because quite often what we imagine they're going to be in the future isn't what they end up being. And a good example of that is Marcus Smith. I'm not knocking him, But let's be honest. On an international stage, he has not yet, and he may well do, but he has not yet delivered on what we imagined he would be capable of delivering by this point. And that's because we exaggerated in our minds how good he was going to be. The reality is very different, which is why older players, I think, get a bad rap and don't get judged fairly. And sometimes there is this obsession with going, get the kids in. And I'm not having it. And to return to South Africa, to finish this point, if I did the same thing with them and I picked a South Africa team for the next World Cup based only on players that are in the current squad, so I couldn't pick any new players, and believe me, South Africa in the Currie Cup right now and in the Super Rugby franchises, or the URC franchises, my goodness me, there will be some incredible South Africans who will be part of the next World Cup squad. However, if I couldn't pick any of those and I had to just pick a team from the current World Cup winning squad, then the team could look something like this in 4 years' time. Yeah, I could totally imagine Eben Etzebeth and Peter Steph du Toit and Frans Malherbe still playing, age 36, Faf de Klerk, why not? Andre Pollard. I mean, just look at Damien Willemse, by the way. He could end up with 4 World Cup winning medals by the time he's done. He's got 2 in the bank at age 25. It's absolutely bonkers. But that's not unrealistic, is it? And the average age of that team would be 32.6. So not masses older than the team that just won the Rugby World Cup. Rest my case. Mic drop. I'd love to know what you think about this whole topic on the desire just to clean players out, whether we judge youngsters accurately, whether old players are kind of written off too soon, and stories like Dwayne Vermeulen and Dion Ferré are brilliant case studies of that. The comments are there. I'll be down there with you having a little bit of a natter. I hope I've earned your subscription. There's much more rugby stuff coming here on Egg Chasers. I'm Tim. Give the video a thumbs up and I will see you on the next one.